I'm going to be speaking about how to create your own opportunities and how to develop or brand yourself, considering that I'm sure many of you are just starting or in the middle stages of developing your brands. On how to create your opportunity, being a one-person team, it's really important to develop those relationships not only with your professional network, but also your direct network as far as the personal touch with the people who are your demographic, basically. If you have an understanding and you research your demographic, you definitely have a winner. In regard, I'm going to get to the Drake concert and how we utilized Twitter. We didn't have to sell any tickets. We didn't have to do anything. We sold out a concert in 5 hours off of Twitter over a year ago. It was crazy. That was when Twitter was not that popular. Utilizing that, it was done. And the Atlanta show is what set Drake off because that's the show that got him the most publicity. So, and getting back, but this is what it's all going to lead to. My background in the fashion industry, working with individuals like Marielle Hayen. Does anyone know who that is? Yes, Marielle Hayen is a very, very, very established stylist out of New York. She is what you call a transformer. Her first client, she's worked as a fashion stylist at MTV Networks, a fashion editor at The Source, but her first client as a transformer was Rihanna. The Rihanna that you know now from Upon the Boat. Rihanna, what she made her now is who I work with. And I picked to work with Marielle for the simple fact that I have an interest in branding and revitalizing a brand. So, and that can apply to a company, to an individual, whatever it is that you need. With learning that in the fashion industry and being behind the scenes, I applied that to the music and entertainment industry. And what I developed and realizing in the Atlanta market was a site called ComeUpKids.com. It is down right now because we are redesigning and redeveloping. But is that my cue that I'm talking too much? No. But ComeUpKids.com, living in Atlanta about 5 years ago, I realized that an individual like myself who's born overseas, lived overseas, and has lived in many places, I have different interests. I'm not a segregated individual, in my interests, not racial or anything. But in that, I realized that, okay, there is no market for an individual like myself or the like minds of Margaret, Janae, Satosa, everyone in this room, so I created my own platform. In doing so, I masked for, let's take a party. A party to some is just that, go out, have fun. A party to me is a platform to brand my product, to brand my clients. What I do currently is kind of hard to give you guys a big overhead because I manage artists. I learned how to be a booking agent. I booked my own artists with no deal, no distribution, a 45-day European tour before I could even book her a US tour. So understanding that you creating your own platform is the most important thing. You just have to go out there. Don't complain about the business and somebody not giving you a chance. There are no handouts. Before you nag, complain, whatever, you have to create your own opportunity and learn the business. Educate yourself. If you want to book your artist, learn how to be a booking agent. If you want to do PR, learn about how to write a press release. That's the most important thing, educating oneself about anything that you guys want to do, and that helps you in creating your own opportunities. And back to ComeUpKids.com, I realized living in Atlanta that there was no dabbler scene. Some of us like to go to MJQ, okay, but then the same people that go to the Q go to the Velvet Room on Sunday, and then go to an art opening by Dosa Kim, and then to a really uppity event, that's invite only. And it was rare. It was a niche market that only consisted of maybe 300 people, and I wanted to create that platform that brought those people to put whatever it is that I was bringing on there. And ComeUpKids was that site where you could go online and see the calendar with those events. If you are out of town, understanding that you can come to the site and see all the events from, the South by South. Oh, we're gonna get to that in a second. But creating your own scene is really important. It's a society of just building with like minds. That's the most important thing. And understanding that your network is your team, especially if you're one person. If you are an individual who's a publicist, you have to create visuals for your press releases. Having a great graphic designer on your team. I'm a visual snob. Garner can tell you that. Anybody that I know, I'm really big on it. If you have something like this standing, you're really intrigued to see what it is. You wouldn't think this is a concert. It's a show at a venue. Challenging the designer around you to create a medium like this, a visual medium, not just a design, but actually creating the design and taking a picture of it, will entice you as a consumer. And that's the kind of stuff that you have to do to bring people into your brand. We talked about creating events and using them as a platform, and how it led to doing. For instance, I have a party called Broken Bougie. I started it because I used to manage a group back in the day, but they didn't have a fan base at all. Their name was Proton. Giant was one of the first people to actually write about it back in the day. But with Broken Bougie, it was masked as a networking event and a party, and it led me to Drake, because Drake used to actually blog on the Toronto website of Come Up Kids. He did a Broken Bougie party back in the day. So I kept that contact close, cultivating those relationships, to 3 years later when I knew he had a mixtape coming out, and we developed a whole marketing plan around the show. His own team with Young Lenny did not want to do a show that consisted of more than 200 people because they didn't believe that Drake could sell out a venue. We only had the loft at center stage with 700. The capacity was 700 people, and they didn't want to do it. But we believed in it, and knowing that our market and the platform that we built, utilizing the parties like Broken Bougie and other events that I've done, I knew my demographic, and I knew my demographic was speaking about it. These are the 18 to 25-year-olds that knew and are ahead of the curve, and these are the people you have to listen to. So come the Drake event, you have people like MTV, you know, Kanye blogged about it, put up the video from the event. That's really big, and it set it off. It led to Goody Mob, for instance. Understanding and knowing your market and being ahead of the curve is knowing that, for instance, nobody knew that Goody Mob got back together. But the minute we heard it, and knowing certain people in the industry and networking, we heard that they might get back together, we came in and offered them a show before anybody even knew on the outside that there was a show coming out, or that they were reunited at all. So being ahead of the curve is really, really important. And with the Goody Mob show, we see where everything is right now. They have a reunion tour. We brought out 4,000 people at the Masquerade outside in the rain. I mean, I don't know how many of you were there, but that's not, So, I mean, it's muddy. Like, so 4,000 people, 4 kids coming together and understanding their market really developed an event that created a national sensation around it. Leading up to A3C is a hip hop festival here in Atlanta. My niche is grassroots marketing, up and coming artists, knowing the Drakes before they become the Drakes, the J. Coles, all these artists, the Outkast back in the day, probably before they became Outkast. So what I did was, knowing that Atlanta artists could not make it, up and coming underground subculture scene in Atlanta and the lifestyle, could not or did not have the means to get out of Atlanta and go to the New Yorks, LAs, and Chicagos, I brought all those artists from the other markets down to Atlanta to have a networking event for all of them.